Hey, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening in some places. My name is Michael Grant, teaching fellow with the Google News Lab. And this has been a really exciting and special week for us here at the lab because we've been offering a complete week-long training. It's something of a summer camp. And so today we're really excited to be sharing with you data tool journalism. And really quickly, I just want to bring on my colleague here, Maggie, so she can say hi.
Hi. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah. So we'll bring you back on in just a second. I'm just gonna share a few more words about the Google News Lab with our attendees here. And so really quickly before we get started with our training with Maggie, I just wanted to share a couple more words about the News Initiative. So this is our effort to build a stronger future for journalism. We do this through three key ways. The first is by elevating and strengthening quality journalism. Maggie and I are here to help fulfill that mission in our jobs as teaching fellows. So we typically go on the ground and into newsrooms and do trainings. But with the crisis of COVID-19 rampant throughout the world, it's really great that we can huddle on things like YouTube Live or Google Hangouts Meet and coordinate trainings with you. So you can always contact us to arrange Meets trainings, and we'll leave information about how you can contact us at the end of this presentation. But I also wanted to share with you that we are helping to evolve business models that drive sustainable growth for journalism. And so we're doing this through, offering up tools like the all new News Consumer Insights tools, or Google Analytics is another kind of integration with that. And so it's really powerful when we can share tools like that with newsrooms. And then finally, we empower newsrooms and organization through technological growth. And what that means to us is that here at Google, we actually are building tools on occasion that are built alongside and with journalists in mind. You've already gotten an introduction to Backlight, and if you haven't, again, we can go ahead and share that with you. There's also innovation challenges that are a part of the work that we're doing to help support journalism. And so they encourage the use of technology or the development of technology. And so the current one is open now. It closes somewhere around mid-August. And so I encourage you to visit the Google News Lab website and check out more about that. I also want to go ahead and call out the g.co/news training website. So our news training website is basically a compilation of lessons and tutorials that allow you to kind of dig deeper into some of the things that, some of the trainings that we have and some of the Google products that we offer. So there's lots there. It includes things like today's data journalism, environmental reporting, data journalism, and so on. So I really encourage you to check that out. It's a free website. There's modules that really help you learn some of the tools. And what we haven't been able to fit into this week's training, a lot of that can be seen in this training center. Okay, so at this point, I will go ahead and bring up Maggie, and she will be showing you more about data tools for journalism.
Hi. So today we're going to look at tools to help you tell your stories with data. And we're going to start by how do you find your data? And then look at how to collect it. We're going to complicated, it's not. And then we're going to make a map from the data that we scrape from the website. And then we're going to play with visualizations, some very simple and some a little bit more powerful and elegant and complicated with the Flourish Studio. So Thanks for joining us. You're giving us an hour. We're going to try to give you some time back. I'm going to just show you this bonus tool, which is voice transcription. So this is great for when you're trying to think out a story out loud, when you're going to a press conference. If you need to transcribe something quickly from your tape recorder, you can just go here to open up a Google Doc, go here to the Tools drop down, and it's going to offer you, here it comes, voice typing. So click on that, click on the microphone, and it will transcribe what it hears. So you could even try this right now. You could open up a Google Doc and put on Tools, voice typing, click on the red microphone, and voila, you've got sort of an instant transcript. Little time saver, doesn't do punctuation. You'll have to add that in later, but it's pretty darn good. And I'm going to show you another transcription trick at the very end with Backlight. So hang with me. All right. So Michael mentioned our news training website, g.co/news training. So if this goes a little fast today, don't worry, because you can come back and watch this video on YouTube with all the links and things that we have in the chat box. Or you can go to the news training website and take some of the courses or even just a piece of it. So today we're talking about getting data and telling stories with data. And so there are a couple of shortcuts to data that's already made for you. And I'm going to show you some tools that Google has provided for tracking the spread of coronavirus and also seeing how people are moving or not moving around. So Google has compiled these community mobility reports. And there's the link, google.com/COVID-19 mobility. And it shows how your community is moving around or not moving around due to COVID-19. And they collect data from cell phones anonymously and aggregated. So I can't tell where you personally are going or not going, but you can look at your state or even the county in your state and examine how people are not going to stores and recreation, not so much to the grocery, and going to parks or not going to parks compared to the baseline, which was taken in the last week of January, first week of February. So that might give you some insights or some ideas for stories about how people are moving or how people are not moving from a few weeks ago compared to now. So that's all compiled for you. Those are the mobility reports. So Stanford has the big local news project, and they have put together a COVID-19 mapping tool, which is pretty much real time. You can explore the country by county and get the confirmed number of cases and the fatalities, and then you can export and embed them. So if you're trying to pull data every day for your area, it may save you some time to go to this COVID mapping tool. And when you go there, it will explain their sources and how they compile it and so on. Okay, so let's get into why data visualization. Telling stories with data can be very powerful, but sometimes it can be hard to understand unless you visualize it. And then images can be much easier to understand than looking at a spreadsheet or rows of numbers or trying to parse out a long paragraph. So this is an example from the Washington Post that was done in March during the debate over whether or not to lock down communities or not. And this visualization was showing a disease called simulitis, but it's meant to model COVID, and how it would spread over time and whether you could flatten the curve depending on the openness of society. And so it had all of these different visualizations, which were quite powerful and quite persuasive and might have even changed policy here in Washington. This is an example of Reuters that tried to visualize how the world is buying so many plastic bottles. And so they've got this counter that opened when you open the page to try to show you how quickly these bottles add up. And so this is just a really powerful visualization. And the nice thing about data is that it's all about the facts. And it helps you as a journalist reclaim the facts. And when you present the data to your audience, they can also see the facts. And if you have an interactive visualization, they can play with the facts. And trust is a big issue in not only media, all institutions, but especially in the media right now. So this is a way to build trust with your readers. You can make them from readers or users into participants. Make it more interactive. Make it more of a conversation. So if people are allowed to play with the data, then they're allowed to build their own conclusions, and they're more likely to trust that and share that and spend time on it. People also love to learn about themselves and about the world around them. So this is an example of a really successful data story. It was done by the New York Times in 2013, and they called it the dialect map. And so they just asked people a series of questions about how you talk. And then, depending on your quiz answers, they would show you where you came from. And so they would ask a series of questions, 25 questions, such as, what do you call the insect that flies around in the summer and glows in the dark? I grew up calling it a firefly. You might have called it a lightning bug, or somewhere in the country, it's called a peeny-wally. So by answering a series of those questions, they can deduct, based on a bunch of linguistic data, where you come from. And look, they got me right on the dot. I grew up in Denver, and apparently people in Arizona share the same linguistic patterns. But this was an incredibly popular interactive data story. It was only up for 2 weeks before it became the most trafficked, most popular shared story on the New York Times website in 2013. And it was made by a data intern who later became the data editor. So that's very powerful. And that was really meant to show you how people are so interested in data that shows something about themselves or about the people who are connected to them, and help them understand where they are in relation to the world. Data stories are also very good for explaining stories about systems or something that's evolving. So where do you find the data to tell these stories? If you've been with us earlier this week, for the very first day, we looked at advanced search, how to do power searching. And so I'll just do a quick review of some of these things because they really apply to our data journalism. So in advanced search, you can limit your search by search refinements to get more precise results. So if you were just searching for expenses, for example, you might get a generic result like this. But if you're looking for expenses, you could even say, you're looking for certain politicians' expenses or something, and limit it to the file type of a spreadsheet, XLS. And then you would only get results that were in that XLS or CSV, actually is my example here, format. So if you're a data journalist, that's a really quick way to get more precise search results. But wait, there's more. Google has a dedicated search site called Dataset Search that will only look for data sets and only return data sets. So if you're searching for data sets about coronavirus, for example, you would just put it in here in the search box, and it would return these different kinds of results from authoritative sites like the CDC, the New York Times shares their data sets, and so on, WHO. It's also nice because you can filter the results by their freshness. When was the last updated? The format, the usage rights, whether or not it's free. That can be useful too. there is, I'm going to jump out and actually show you this one live because it's so powerful. So it's google.com public data, and it's something called the Public Data Explorer. And this is a really great site because it takes data from all sorts of international institutions, including census.gov in the United States, which is a very rich source of demographic data. And you can even do visualizations right there on their site. But right here at Public Data Explorer, the nice thing about this is that you get the data, but you also get the visualization right there. And you get it, you can set your own parameters. Say in this chart from the World Bank, which is measuring fertility rate versus life expectancy, I can check off which countries I'm most interested in, and it will highlight those on the chart. And this is the best part. Down here, you can animate it. And so it shows you over the years how the data has changed. And so you can see Rwanda going backward there in life expectancy when there was a genocide. And you can see how all of these, I'll play it again. You can see how China's fertility rate sinks during the one-child policy. And so that may have taken a while for you to decipher if you're just looking at a spreadsheet or columns of numbers. But here you have the numbers and the animation. And there's more. You can look up here at the different formats and decide which format presents your story the best. Is it a line chart? Is it a bar chart? Globe? It's a little bit too big. I like the scatter plot. If you like it and you'd like to share it, and there you can play with more things. But if you go here to this link image, link icon, you can paste a link, get the link to share in your email or IM, or get the HTML code to copy and embed in your website. And then with your coding, you can play with the size and the shape of the actual table, but the animated table will just embed in your website. So that's a nice shortcut for gathering data. There are lots of sites that actually share their data sets from their data stories. I mentioned before the New York Times is one, the Upshot, the HuffPost, BuzzFeed News. They all share their data sets, and 538 is a really great site for political data. And this is my personal favorite. It's pudding.cool. It's so cool that cool is their domain name. And I'm just showing you this to show that, you know, data stories don't have to be boring. You don't have to use a plain scatter plot with circles. This is a chart of the vocabulary size of rappers. And you can see all the rappers' faces in there from the least to the most. Aesop Rock uses more than 7,000 words, unique words in his music. And they even have a Wu-Tang Clan filter, if you're into that. You can also find data in Google Trends. And this, for example, you know, it can be very granular. This, for example, is search interest minute by minute in one of the Democratic debates. And Google Trends makes all of this data available to you. And you can see it's not a proxy for, you know, who's doing the best or for polls, but search interest. So you can see Marianne Williamson is way up here at the top for almost the whole debate. And it may be because people were wondering who was Marianne Williamson, because then she was a relatively new candidate. So Google Trends does make some of their data available in the data store. It's at googletrends.github.io/data. But I am actually going to show you how you can get that data yourself. So if you go to Google Trends, trends.google.com is the trends page. You can see what the world is searching. And this is a really powerful source of data. because people tend to tell their computer things that they don't tell anybody else. They're quite honest. You might not tell your doctor what you're searching for, even your best friend. But on the trends page, you can see that they have curated stories about trend usage, about coronavirus, protests for racial equality and justice. Pride Month was in June. And you can see what are the most recently trending stories. But there, you can actually go in and see what people were searching for, what the most asked questions were, and you can look into where the highest search interest was. So it was in Portland, Oregon, and then you can click on in and see how it is all over the country or even all over the world. What are the most top search phrases and where, and so on. So that's really worth exploring, the trends data page. But I'm going to show you how you can get data straight from the trends page. So say, for example, actually, let's just go down. I'll show you exactly how to get into it. So up here in this, we call it a hamburger menu. Up here in this menu in the corner, it shows all the things that you can look at. We were just looking at trending searches, but now we're going to explore. And here you can add your own search terms, up to 5, and then compare how people were searching. So I went ahead and made one for vice presidential prospects. Everybody's talking about who's going to be the vice presidential pick for Joe Biden. And so here are some of the most mentioned names. And Amy Klobuchar has dropped out, but it might be interesting to see when interest in her petered out. And we can do it for the past 12 months. We can do it worldwide, or let's just look in the United States. Sorry, there we go. You can do it for the last year. You can do it all the way back to 2004, or you can do it for the past hour if there's enough data. But let's look at the last week. You can also search by image search, news search, or even YouTube, and that will have often very different kinds of results. So we're looking at who's gotten the most search interest in the last 7 days. And you can see this blue line here. Kamala Harris got a big spike on July 9th. And, you know, it's sort of been up and down. And so a little bit later, after I introduce you to Flourish, I'm going to show you how to visualize this in a bar chart, a racing bar chart. But for now, let's just look at this. You've got this graph, and if this is what you want, in the place you want, you can just take this graph to embed. There's the embed code, and you can get it in responsive layout in desktop or mobile. So that's great for popping onto social media. People can see it on their phones, and then they can click through and read your story. You can also share it directly to the social media sites from here. This is for embedding in your website. But if you want to play with it further, you can click this down arrow and it will download a CSV file, a comma-separated value file that then you can use to play with later in your own visualization. And then you can do more customized searches here. You can break it down by subregion. The search interest for Kamala Harris is the most in California. You can go into California and get it just for there. Or you can break it down by metro area in California, and so on for each candidate. So you can get quite granular with that search data, and that's all made for you. So we'll come back to that file that we downloaded in a bit. So that's one way of collecting data that's already made for you. Now we're going to look at some ways to collect your own data. And this is one of them. This is Google Forms. And it's like a nice little survey form that you can create with your own questions. And then you can send it out in a newsletter, embed it on your website. And the cool thing about it is that it collates the answers real time and drops them into a spreadsheet for you, or makes a visualization. So people can see, if you're doing a poll, like what should we ask the governor that we're going to interview tomorrow? Vote for your top 3 topics. You can see that real time, and other people can see what other people are voting for. So that's a nice interactive component, but also very useful for you because you've got all the data right there in your spreadsheet. So spreadsheets, Google Sheets, you may be, Google Sheets are, I call them the Clark Kent of the Google tools. You may be used to working with a spreadsheet to do your budget or to run numbers, and it's all just very quotidian. But like Clark Kent, it's got hidden superpowers. So Sheets can actually be used to scrape a website, and lots of other functions. There's 65 functions that you can find out. But today we're just going to focus on this one because it's so useful. So we're going to scrape a website, and then we're going to take what we put in our spreadsheet and make a map out of it. So if you'd like to follow along, it's not difficult. Go ahead and open up a spreadsheet, a Google Sheet, and you can do that several ways. You can just Google Sheets. You can type in your browser window sheets.new. That's my favorite shortcut. Or you can do it from your Gmail account menu. Just click on the sheets. And then this is the formula that we're going to be using, but I'm just going to jump out and show you firsthand. Let's make that as big as we can. Okay, so true story. Yesterday, my daughter got a phone call, and she's been quarantining with her boyfriend. And I don't know how, but they're not supposed to see any other people in the outside world. But he called yesterday and said that he has just gotten diagnosed for COVID. So we had to find a test site for her. So I live in Washington, D.C., and so we were looking at the coronavirusdc.gov/testing site. So this is the site I'm going to scrape. And if you'd like to follow along, I'll say the URL again, coronavirus.dc.gov/testing. And so here it is. It gives a table of the testing sites. And there's free public testing sites that you can just walk up or drive through. And then in Washington, D.C., they're also doing testing for free at firehouses. So this is nice. It's got these nice little tables here. But I'm not quite sure where all of these places are and which one is the closest. So I'm going to, actually, I'm going to open up a new sheet. I do it by sheets.new. And I'm going to call it DC testing. Always good to title your sheets so you can find them later. So you don't have a whole Google Drive full of untitled work projects. Okay, so here we are. We've got our sheet. We've got the site that we want to scrape. So we're going to go back to that site and copy the URL. Just select it and Control or Command C, whether you're using a PC or a Mac. Grab that URL, and then we're going to go back to our sheet. Okay. We are going to import the data from a website. So we're going to tell the computer what we're going to do. And you do that by putting in an equal sign which is signaling to the computer we're about to do a function, an action. And then we're going to tell which one, and we're going to import HTML. And as you begin to type in import, I'm going to try to make this a bit bigger for you. Okay, as you type in import, you'll see this drop-down menu. And this shows all the other things that you can import with a simple command. But today we're going to focus on import HTML, which imports data from a table or a list in a website, in an HTML page. And it gives you, if you click on that, it gives you a nice little pop-up menu that gives you the structure of the things that we're going to put in. And it gives you an actual example, including where these quotation marks and commas go. Okay, so it's a bit of a cheat sheet. All right, so we've got, and if you have questions again, you can just click on this question mark bar and that little table will pop up again. Okay, so the first thing it told us to do was to put in the URL in quotation marks. Okay, it looks complicated, but afterwards you're going to feel like a hacker. All right. Quotation marks, paste in the URL, end quote. It's a very strict copy editor.
Uniform resource locator, colloquially termed a web address.
Sorry, Siri's trying to help. Sorry, Siri, be quiet. Let me say that again. Quotation marks, URL, end quote, comma. And now we're looking for that table. And so we're going to tell it, quotation mark, we're looking for a table. And the choices for this tool are list or a table. And then it says which table on the page. Now on this page, there are actually two tables. One is the free public testing sites, and one is the testing at DC firehouses. And there's actually 3, 4, there's several tables on there, but we just want the first one. So we're going to say table 1. All right, hit return. It closes the parentheses for you. And voila, look. They made, there's your spreadsheet. Anacostia walk-in. And I'm actually going to show you a little trick here to make the cells fit the words, so it's not all crunched in like that. So if you go up here to this little corner box under the function box, in between the A and the 1, go up here, click it, it'll turn the whole sheet blue, it'll select the whole sheet, and then go bring your little cursor over here in between the A and the B. See how the horizontal arrow is in between those columns? Bring it there and click twice, and it makes your cells fit the words. Zoom out there a little bit. Okay, so we have our DC's testing sheet with the places and the addresses. Voila, you scraped a website. There it is. And don't worry, you can go back and watch this again. Just go back to the YouTube video. All right. Not so bad, right? Now we're going to make the map. Which is the closest place to me? All right, so you're going to put in, sorry, I'll do that again. You're going to go to My Maps, and you can go mymaps.google.com, or you can just Google My Maps, and it will come up with this kind of interface. And you'll want to, I'll give you a second to get there. Once you get to My Maps, you're going to see this red box that says Create a New Map. And you're going to click on the red box. And voila, you've got a new map to play with. And there's 9 different kinds of maps that you can use as your base map. Let's just use this one. I'm going to title my map again, BC Testing, so we can find it. And now we're going to add a layer. So see this blue file with the arrow? It says import. We're going to click there, go to Google Drive, or you can upload it if you've got a CSV file on your computer. You can also upload from Excel spreadsheets, any kind of spreadsheets. It doesn't have to be a Google spreadsheet, but since we did that cool scraping thing, it's going to be in our Google Drive. So you can only do the scraping with Google spreadsheets. Okay, so here's my drive. Here is the spreadsheet that we just made, DC testing. So we click on that and select it. Now it's going to ask you a couple of questions. The first question is, where do you want to put your place marks? And so the address would be a good answer to where. And the next question is, which column do you want to use as the title for the place marks? So let's have that the site name. And push finish. And there you go. It imported those place marks into your map. And then you can click on these place marks. And it has all that information that was in your spreadsheet. There's the spreadsheet, the site, the address, the time, if you need an appointment. And that's what it looks like on the map. Then you can also play with these place marks. You can change the color. You can make them a different icon. And there's a whole big menu of different icons that you can choose. Let's say a little hospital sign. You can also upload your own custom icons. If you've got a graphics person that wants to create one, or you can use uncopyrighted images from the web, you can upload all of those. You can also add photographs. So if you wanted a photograph from your of the place that you wanted to add, or you could even add a video from YouTube. So those are nice things. You can also add driving directions and so forth. And then the cool thing, go back up here to these little 3-dot menu. You can get the embed code to embed on a website. You can share it. And you can export KML and KMZ. So what's that? That is the code language for your place marks. Keyhole markup language is what it means. And that is useful in case you want to make another layer on another map, or export it to something like Google Earth Studio, which we're going to do tomorrow. This is so much fun. Be sure to come tomorrow because Michael's going to walk us through Google Earth. And so what I did is take some of those place marks. Let's see if I saved it, and put it into dang, it's gone. I put it into Google Earth, and then you could just fly from spot to spot. Okay, so just to review, there is, we'll have this in our links, but that's the code, and it pops up on the spreadsheet and so on. So well done. You made a map from the spreadsheet. Okay, now we're going to look at some quick visualization tools. So the very simplest one is Data GIF Maker. And it's just templates that you can choose from: a rectangle, a circle, racetrack, and all you have to do is put in the name of the value and the value. And then you can also share them, download them, put them on your social media. They're really great. They're colorful. I'll just show you how easy it is. Say you wanted to do a graph of what we do working from home. So say we've been working from home from home for like 121 days, which is how long I've been doing it. And compared to how long it takes for a dog to have puppies, which is 61-day gestation period or so on. Or you could, that's just to show you how simple it is to make one of these charts. And so you can do it by percentage or by value. You can preview the animation. This is the best part, it's animated. You can add terms. And then when you're happy with it, you can save it and you can export it to your social media. So that's fun. There's the rectangles, that's how they animate. It's really good for, this is just one for poll leaders who was leading in the polls last October when all those people were still in the race. And here's what the racetrack looks like. Number of households owning different kinds of pets. Okay, so that's the very simple kind of data visualization you can make with Data GIF Maker. And we've got the link for you there. All right, now we're going to go to Flourish, which is just really lovely and powerful. And it's flourish.studio, and it has all sorts of different kinds of maps and templates and ways for you to visualize your data. And you don't need to know how to code. All you need to be able to do is be able to fill out a spreadsheet. And there's also a special level of an enterprise level for newsrooms that Google Labs subsidizes. So if you go to flourish.studio/newsrooms, you can sign up for a free account for your newsroom, which has deeper levels of privacy and more bells and whistles and things. So let's take a look live at Flourish. So when you sign in, you can make a free account. You don't have to have a newsroom account. You can have a free account. And it shows you all of these different kinds of templates. The usuals, the maps, scatter plots, all different kinds of hierarchy. We're going to come back here to this bar chart race. And so on. So you can just explore those. And like here's a slider I made of the spread of coronavirus using that that site I showed you earlier from Stanford, from April to July. And you can see the confirmed cases went from 500,000 to 2.7 million just in those few months. And so that's a really nice, easy visual. And then here's one that I made from the data that we downloaded from the trends data. Remember when we click that little arrow on trends right here, and it jumped down there, and then you can upload it again. And this is what it looks like. So it will give you a template of the way the data is supposed to look. And then you go, say, upload data, and you go to where it downloaded in your download file, click that, it will upload. And in this particular data file, the columns were supposed to be the candidates, and then the days are supposed to go across. And the way it uploaded was the opposite. So if you're using spreadsheets, you can do a pivot table, you can transpose them, but right here in Flourish, they've got this nice little swap rows and columns feature right here in the corner where it will pivot the data for you. It swaps the rows and columns for you. So that's a great feature. And then over here in this area, it shows how you can choose your colors, how you can set the names of the candidates, and you can even add images. And I added a column for the images, and then you just match it up with what it asks for. And if you'd like a slower walkthrough, go ahead and email me, and we can do one for you and your newsroom colleagues. I know you're all in your individual homes, but we can gather a group together and walk you through that a little bit more slowly. My email is mfarley@google.com. And then that's what it ends up looking like. This is the racing bar chart. And that is also exportable, embeddable, shareable, and really nice and customizable for you to use on your website. Okay. So I wanted to show you my last little favorite thing, which is Backlight. And Backlight is an AI tool that was developed by Google Engineers for Journalists. And it uses artificial intelligence and machine learning to help you sort through thousands of documents. And this is great for when you do a FOIA request and all of a sudden you've got 10,000 documents of different files and formats. So this will read those pesky PDFs that are sort of the bane of data journalists everywhere. It can search them. It can read, the normal Word, Excel, but it also can search spreadsheets and emails and even images, text inside of images. So if you have a photograph of something with a word in it, it can search for that word. And my favorite example is I was looking at some files released by the House Intelligence Committee of the fixer in the Ukraine, Lev Parnas, in the whole impeachment hearings. And the House Intelligence Committee documents showed a screenshot of a text exchange that included a picture of a passport. And you can search the name in that passport, 3 levels down. So that was really fantastic. It's something that Control F will just not get you. One thing that Backlight just added a couple of weeks ago that doesn't show on this list is audio files. So you can also upload audio files and they will be transcribed for you along with the little into paragraphs, but with the relevant bit of audio at the top. So it's divided into nice sections that you can listen to and look at the transcription. So that's another wonderful thing. So let me just show you how it works. So say you're using Backlight, you get in, you upload your collection here, and it takes all of your documents. This example is from the JFK assassination records, which has 30,000 documents, and many of those documents have more than one page. So we're talking about tens of thousands of documents. And it splits it into people, organizations, and locations. And then you can search these documents, even combining search terms, to narrow down your search. And it will show you exactly which documents have, John F. Kennedy and Lee Harvey Oswald in Mexico City, for example. The other thing it has is entity expansion, which is a kind of semantic search. So if you're searching for, you can put in guns, but it will also bring back rifles and pistols and shotguns. And if you want to narrow it just to guns, you put quote marks around it. So that's a very useful thing. So that's Project Backlight. It's in beta right now. If you're interested in that, I'm going to show you the link in just a second, how to sign up for the beta. And it takes a little while to be approved, but once you get it, it's still so powerful, even in beta. And we'd love your feedback on it as well. So there have been some beta testers. The Washington Post used it to do live fact checking during the impeachment hearings. They uploaded the Mueller Mueller documents and other stories that they had written and used those for fact checking. Maria Ressa, a Rappler in the Philippines, scanned her notebooks and uploaded them so they could be transcribed and searched, which is really fabulous to have when the government comes into your offices and takes away your computers, which has happened to Maria Ressa. And in Baltimore, they used the declassified FBI documents to search how Baltimore was portrayed and its relationship with Martin Luther King. And this was the headline of the story that they came up with. So lots of interesting and various uses there for Backlight. Let me get to the link. Here it is. So you can sign up here at this link, goo.gle/getbacklight, and make sure that's all lowercase. Okay, so Michael will tell us if there have been any questions that have popped up during the chat, in the chat during the presentation, and I'm happy to try to answer those. You can also email me at mfarley@google.com to set up further training. And you can also look at our news training website.
Maggie,
so Michael, I heard you say something.
Yeah, if you could just put up the slide for signing up for the Backlight waiting list.
There it is.
Yes. Just want to drop it into the chat.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And they're onboarding between 50 and 100 journalists a month. So if you're an investigative journalist or someone who deals with a lot of documents, who can use this and be able to give feedback, that's fabulous. You need to sign up with a Gmail account. So that may not be your work account. It may be an account that you create expressly for reporting projects, but they do need a Gmail account. All right, I'll put up some of those other links and things there too. So if you have questions about any of these tools that we've been showing you, you can contact newslabsupport@google.com. You can contact me or Michael. He's Grant Michael at google.com, throwing his name out there. And that's our news training website. And more about the Google News Initiative is there too. So,
Wonderful.
Michael, anything else for us?
No, I think I was able to tackle all the questions that I got in our YouTube live chat. That was really wonderful. Talk about detailed. I mean, you went through so many tools, and really, you know, this is all about trying to make these tools accessible to journalists. So if you need, you can always go back and replay this video. It'll be on our YouTube live channel. And again, Maggie and I are always available to train your newsroom. So feel free to, you know, work out a smaller training with us, and we'd love to work with you.
Absolutely. Thanks for sticking with us. Come back tomorrow for Google Earth. It's going to be really fantastic.
Yeah, that's right. So next week I'll be wrapping up the week. Tomorrow I'll be wrapping up the week with Google Earth, and I'll be showing you how to use Google Earth Studio, which is really exciting. It's one of my favorites coming from visuals and journalism, and so stay tuned for that. We hope to see you tomorrow, and thank you so much for joining us. And Maggie, thank you again. You've been amazing today.
Yes, thanks. Thanks for sticking with us.
Absolutely. All right, folks. So take care. Enjoy the rest of your day, and looking forward to working with you and presenting tomorrow. It looks like I got a couple extra questions, so let me just go ahead and grab this now while we're still here.
Mm-hmm.
Can trends be used to look at searches in metro areas without the use of a keyword?
That's a little bit more difficult. There's a workaround by putting in the name of the metro area and see what people are searching for in related searches.
Yeah, and I do believe there's a drill down, as well as when you're seeing the trending part, you can then see by metro area. So
if you have a keyword.
Go ahead. Yeah, if you have a keyword, that's right.
But if you don't have a keyword, just make the city or the area the keyword, and you can see what kinds of things people are searching for related to that area.
Yeah, and then Maggie, I think there are some access issues to the Google Doc that you shared. So
okay. You may have to request access. It's just a security measure, but I will grant you access. I can also email you directly if I've got your email. So a couple ways around that.
Okay, wonderful. All right. Well, that sounds great. I'm just gonna go ahead and drop the link to this document one last time so people can request access there. So I've just dropped in the link to resources to this training. Thank you again so much for joining us today. I guess we'll sign off now.
Okay, see you tomorrow. Thanks.
All right, bye folks.